Hey guys, Mike here. So, but what a 180, and I literally mean a 180 from yesterday, which was whatever was red yesterday was green today. Whatever was green yesterday was pretty much red today. All right, so money just sloshed from here to there, back to here. Okay, and of course, again, as I said in last night's video, when you were oversold almost on 95% of the time frames, from the 1 minute all the way to the 4 hour, odds are there's going to be a bounce on those stocks, okay? And that's what you got to see today, especially Nvidia, excuse me. Huge day, kept moving up. What I'm going to do in this video is I like to do an autopsy of the day, as I like to call it. I'll show you the events that took place really quickly to show you this huge surge in what you got in Nvidia and in the S&P. It's really the Qs are leading the way because why? The Mag 7, Mag 8, right? I mean, Tesla finally came along at the end of the day. But once again, if Nvidia is doing good, Tesla ain't doing nothing. If Tesla's doing really good, Nvidia is probably not doing much either, right? It's like the option market still just cannot float both those stocks. Plus, don't forget Tesla has earnings tomorrow. We'll go into both those charts. Also, something very big. Two things very big. One, I'm sure you were sitting there, and I know I was. You're looking at it before you go, man, my stock's looking good. And if it was a software stock, it didn't matter which stock you own. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to show it to you. Plus, we do have something else that could go our way. Remember, FOMC is tomorrow, right? So if Jerome Powell is all members, if he even sounds dovish, or it comes out that, you know, the voters try to maybe push, you know, maybe we cut rates in March or April, whatever it is, then the market could love that, right? The other thing that could happen is, let's say you can't figure out which way he's talking, dovish or bearish. Well, where does the money like to go? Where's the safest bet to go? It goes into the Mag 7, Mag 8. Right? We'll just say Mag 7 for now, and then small caps get punished. So you can have different routes that could go on, but there is something that is in the market's favor, so to speak. You're kind of seeing it play out right now, as a matter of fact. And we'll get into a couple other stocks we had talked about that obviously are busting out today pretty big. But when you look, here's the events. You ready? Take this for what it's worth. Now, the market's somewhat green here, but then you see the gamma exposure. That's what I like to look at. And I said right here around 1022, more gamma for that 60-50 strike. And it looked like at that point in time, calls were really starting to outweigh the puts. And so, of course, here we start rock and rolling. The little blue dotted line is where we're at. The other big bar right there is that gamma. And so then 1030, here we go. And we say, okay, calls are outweighing the SPYs by having 3 million puts sold and then buying around, which really wasn't much to me, 500,000 in calls. And then, of course, you know, you can see it right there. When that yellow line or green line, whatever it is, turns up and the red line starts going down, that means you have calls outweighing puts. Remember, the option market, as Jim Carzano said, is the dog, not the tail wagging the dog. And so, of course, it starts to push up. So this starts to all start to happen basically around the same time, okay? Then you have a gamma flip from negative gamma to positive gamma, which takes place around 1020. And you can see right there, it's above the anchor VWAP as well, which is the 4 a.m. anchor VWAP when the market opens. And then, of course, we come back down, retest it later on, and then take off like a bat out of you know what. But we're in positive gamma territory. You can see the explosion up. That's about probably around 0.3% move very quickly. On top of that, what else do you see happening? At 1030, you start to see two very large call transactions for Nvidia. Around 1034 right here, the February 21st, 119 and 138 strikes. You see over 58,000 calls come in for this. Huge amounts of premium, millions worth, okay? And then, of course, Nvidia says, well, cool, we'll start to take off. So that kind of starts its journey on up. It's one of the most heavily weighted stocks. Apple's just roaring, which is, I don't understand why, to be honest with you, but it is still roaring. They report on Thursday. And then, of course, what we talk about in NVIDIA, the 200 moving average, okay? They got this above it, sold it back down below it. It kept trying to hold, failed, got rejected multiple times in these really smaller time frames, but you don't really worry about that as much, just doing the larger time frames. And again, it starts to, you know, build up this trend line. It's about the sixth time it hit it right there. Big move right back down. Then we start to build back up, and that's right around in this area when we start to move back up and you start to see these massive calls start to come in, right? Still rejecting the 200 right there. And then X marks the spot right there. Boom, reject 200 one more time and then explode past the 200. You know, and just, I mean, the call flow just started rolling in and people were selling. I told you yesterday, people were selling puts like crazy. I mean, like crazy. I'll explain that in just a second when I get done with all this stuff, right? So then we get the big move up. So all this taking place really about the same time. And that's why you saw this big move up, all this big push all at once, and it just kept grinding. Now, as I told members, because I just tell the truth on here, disagree if you want, that's fine. But today was mostly just an oversell bounce. This is around noon. And how do I know that? Because I'm looking at what was red yesterday, what was green yesterday, and then the flip of what's happening, okay, and what we're setting up for tomorrow going into FOMC. Also, the good thing is we have seasonality. It don't mean the market can't continue to go up. I'm not saying that at all. But the market understands you have to have the MAG 7 to have any kind of move. When you look at what was green yesterday, look at that. That's consumer discretionary, healthcare, builders, financials, cruise, jets, all that fun stuff. Then all of a sudden you flip to today. Only thing you see on there from yesterday is cruise. That is it. Okay, cruise line stocks. And that's just because I think it was Norwegian or whoever reported. And so you see IGV all of a sudden at 3%. And that's the MAG 7 or MAG 8 at the top. MAG 7's right there. Big tech, cyber, fintech, communications. Okay. And this was probably noon. And then if you look at how we ended the day, you can see it right here. All right. Same thing. I think PSCT, which is small caps, popped up on there. But again, you know, in stocks, you can see even stocks wasn't that great. It was just really Nvidia and Taiwan semiconductors were really moving. But the other thing is in our favor, seasonality. Will this play out? Usually in the last couple of weeks, especially the last week of January, tends to be rough, but then you get this pop, okay, coming from 1st of February to the middle. We'll see if that's going to play out or not. January's kind of deal where we popped up and then we kind of sold down, right? So we'll see if that is the case. I think it has to do a lot with earnings, of course. We have these big companies reporting right there, and usually it turns out well, and they end up pumping the market up. That's usually what happens. And what do we have going on tomorrow? Tesla, Meta, who has Microsoft, and Apple's the very next day. So if those come out good and guidance is good, where's the market going? Going up. All right, and that's why the seasonality is most likely probably that way. But when I was talking about Nvidia puts, you know, people were selling, I think it was the June 20th, 110 for like $1,100. You get the $1,100 premium, no matter what happens, you keep that, right? And as long as Nvidia by June, you would sell this out way before then. But let's say you did that, and as long as Nvidia, so that means if it came down, you got assigned with, you take the 1,100, assuming put it towards purchasing the shares of Nvidia, you would get Nvidia right sub 100, right? Most people would take that deal, okay? But what happens is you get these big moves up because we're super oversold, and a lot of people will close that stuff out today because they I don't know what they were up for the Junes, but some people were selling February, Marches, and they were up 35, 40%, and say they were selling for $600, $700. Well, all of a sudden you got $300 or $400 just like that. Drop a hat, close them out, be done. That's usually what happens. Most people don't hold them until that. So that's a lot of stuff that was happening. And of course, other people were buying calls at the same time. So, you know, good for Nvidia. We'll see where it goes. We're going to talk about this chart in a minute. Now, look at SPY. What we talk about? Again, I talked about in Saturday's video. There's the high. There's the low. Will it hold? That's the question. Came up, fill a lot of this gap right here. One thing we're looking at is definitely going to be this dark pool level we'll mark out for tomorrow, because tomorrow might be pretty volatile, right? With FOMC at 2. I don't know what they're going to do before that. They're going to run it up, whatever they're going to do. But you can see this dark pool level was definitely respected today at 603.50-ish. You can see we rejected multiple times. Finally got above it, turned it into support. Okay, I showed you this last week. I'll try to put more of these on here for you guys because they're important levels. They really are. And so we'll see if that holds right there coming up tomorrow. If we get below it, obviously it becomes resistance right there. So that's what I look for there. To the upside, 607.52 is going to fill basically, actually 607.48, I think, fills the entire gap. So to the upside, we got that. To the downside, the dark pool level. When you come over here and look at the Qs, I told you last night, do not be surprised if we fill 50% of this gap. And what happened? You draw a fib. Somebody asked me this is why I'm covering it. And where do we get to? Exactly 50, the 0.50, right? So that's half this gap. That is normal. You see that quite often if you ever track gaps and stuff like that. So what do we got to the downside? What you're looking at is 518.23 to hold to the downside. To the upside, 528.08 would fill the gap. Okay, that's simply what we're looking for. Again, we'll see what they do overnight. This is going to be extremely crazy volatile, I think, tomorrow. There's a good chance of it, or it could just be a dub, which would be even crazier. But again, when you talk about what helped this move as well, wasn't just your stocks. Not you're not a great stocks picker and all that stuff. Not that I'm not a great stock picker. We all think we're great. But if you were in any kind of software stock, you should be loving life because this thing was up huge. You saw it led the way out of all of them. You can see, that's why I tell you to mark these big, especially weekly fair value gaps out. If you saw Saturday's video, I told you about Bitcoin, how it has this gigantic weekly fair value gap, but it has a cycle, unlike a lot of stocks. And so you see where it stopped, right? It mitigated that as liquidity and moved up, okay? And so this one's performing pretty well. All the software stocks were like this. And if you look on the list of these software stocks, I mean, you can see Oracle, Microsoft, Salesforce, ServiceNow, whatever, CrowdStrike. I think, didn't CrowdStrike set an all-time new high today, I think, if I'm not mistaken? Palantir right there, right? You saw Palantir have a big day. And there's a boatload. This thing has a lot of software stocks in it. And so all of them were doing really well, okay? And it's performed well against the SPY. One thing you'll be very careful about when you're looking at this stuff is go in there and put it against the SPY. So like IGV divided by SPY. And right now it's doing well against the SPY. If you go back last year, you had no business owning IGV because IGV was up like 1% for the whole year and the SPY was up, what, 25, 26%? And so there's no reason owning the, well, never mind. Let me not give financial advice. I would not own an ETF that does not perform the SPY. It makes literally no sense. It just complicates my life. And so when you're looking at this, I implore you, pull up any ETF you own, divide it by the SPY, and then see and measure per year which one's outperforming. Right? And you can see them. I mean, right there on top of each other. And you'll be surprised. You might look at it and go, wow, my ETFs don't even come close to outperforming the SPY. So it makes no sense to own it when the SPY's outperforming it, right? And so SPY gives you a lot of diversity, okay? So just a hint there, but give it a shot because like 2023, you definitely wanted to own IGV. I think it was like 36% or something like that. But 2024, it was rough. Now, looking over here at Nvidia, you can see, I mean, when you really zoom out, you're like, wow. And you look at this, what I'm talking about, oversold, right? I mean, my goodness. You know, got down to 4 on the 15-minute, and you go into every time frame except for the daily, it's oversold. So you got a nice little rubber band bounce, okay? And the options market helped push this one up. And so when you pull out, really on a daily, and you're sitting there going, boy, okay, yep, that's a lot of damage. A lot of damage done. And so when you look at that, you can't even really see the move, right? So we'll get rid of the RSI and look at this, but we are above the 200 now. What's going to end up being resistance is this shaded area. Now we've moved up into it. That's where we stopped today, right? It used to be resistance, then became support. We're going to see if we can get through that or not. And understand, Tesla reports tomorrow. So what have we seen? What have I showed you many times? If Tesla does well and takes over and the option market starts flowing into them, I mean, for the first time, we might see Nvidia and Tesla actually do well together. But again, this is a big move up, so we'll see. And so if it does get above it, obviously you're looking at the 100 moving average, where that blue line is, as well as the next resistance, if it can push through this right here. So I think it's like 132-ish, somewhere in there. And then, of course, at the down, just try to hold the 200 moving average, okay? And try to hold the 200 moving average. I'm going to mark out 116 because that was definitely something that it came down, get right below it, but we've hit that area twice now. And so that could be the bottom. We'll have to see. Now, looking at Tesla, like I said, they got earnings tomorrow, so I'm not going to go crazy on this chart because they didn't do anything today. So the very end of the day, it held the 50, did what it had to do. Now, what are we looking at tomorrow? Okay, we're below previous all-time high, the 110, the 114, all that fun stuff. We are holding the 50. But when you look at the move, they're expecting tomorrow, and we'll come up here, you can see they are expecting between an 8 to 9% move on Tesla. So that's going to put us anywhere from 431 to 436 to the upside right there, as you can see. And then, of course, if they don't like what Elon has to say and all that fun stuff, want to sell it back down, then we're looking at anywhere from the 397, assuming this is the price we go into tomorrow. Okay, I don't know what it's going to do tomorrow. 397 all the way down to like, so it'd be like 358 down to 348. So 358 is the high. So 348, 358 to the downside. You're looking at Tesla. Again, what they're going to do in the daytime with it, I don't know, leading up into earnings. We'll have to see. But I did hold the 50, so that's good. Now, looking at Shop, we talked about this one. Again, pure momentum type plays. If you see it kind of flagging like this, I told you to keep an eye on it. We'll bring out the momentum indicators. Big day today, 8%. I didn't really see any news, but some people actually consider not just to be an e-commerce play, but a software play. And so I guess you can, take that for what it's worth. I saw somebody do it today. We talked about the RSI already being over the 50. We needed the RSI, the MACD to cross, which it did on Friday to confirm it. And then we got the big explosive move up today. So with this one, when you're looking at this, obviously, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this stuff right here. Go to a weekly. You can see the momentum. It's okay. Nothing to write home about, but it's okay. And so looking at this one, though, if it moves up that trend line, which we've been rejected off multiple times, will obviously come into play right here. Again, we are above the 50 moving average on this one, which that's a good thing. It's above all the major moving averages. Two of them are pointing up. The 200 is trying to slide up on that one. But when you come out to earnings, they don't report till February 11th. And we kind of zoom out on this thing right here. You can see what it's about to come up to. If it continues to run, it's going to come into a big weekly fair value gap. I show you this many times. And what normally is supposed to happen is supposed to basically be resistance for it. It kind of slows down while it mitigates it because it is a huge fair value gap and a big range right there. Unless it has some kind of earnings that blows it through it, normally it'll just come up and start building out structure right there. That's normally what you will see. And so we'll mark that out if you happen to see that one. And so what you could see happen here is, as I talked about Saturday, is just structure being built out, right? Higher highs, higher lows. So we need a higher high, come down for the higher low, mitigate that, and then head up into this weekly fair value gap. That's what you hope to see. And of course, earnings will be already here by the time you see all this stuff play out. So just watch for that one. If it comes down, 110.27 is where you look for support. Last one here, I told you guys about BABA, and there we go, explosion out. All the Chinese stocks still moving. Understand very clearly about this. If a tweet comes out or anything out of the White House about putting tariffs on China or retaliating or in any way, shape, or form for anything, then this one trade will definitely be at risk. I mean, you can see a massive drop on these, okay? But so far that has not been the case. And so again, you play what's right in front of you, but just be very aware of that. So BABA is still looking good right there. Big move today. And actually, these were pretty red in the morning, so big recovery in the afternoon. Now, earnings tomorrow. ASML is a big one. Progressive, T-Mobile, ADP, General Dynamics is another one down there. And then in the afternoon, buckle up. Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, IBM. ServiceNow is going to be another one, but really it's just all about Tesla, Meta, and Microsoft, especially Microsoft because it's so heavily weighted. Now, looking at what we got going on, crude oil inventories at 1030. And then you got FOMC where you get to hear Jerome Powell run his mouth, and we'll see what the message is. Is it hawkish or is it going to be dovish? Okay, so let me know how your day went. Please hit that like, subscribe button on your way out. Really appreciate all you guys who do that and watch the videos. Think about signing up with membership. Less than a McDonald's combo, and that's everything you get with it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for a fun one.